Good afternoon, everybody. We're going to call the Board of the Children's Trust, the board meeting, regular board meeting, September 23rd, 2024. At this time, let me read this thing that I have to read, and then we'll go on to the meeting. Any member of the public who would like to address the board, there are two times that y'all have the opportunity to talk to us. One will be before we get into the meat of the agenda, and one will be after we're done. And at that point, y'all can come up and you can talk about anything you want to, anything under the sun. You have 3 minutes to do it, and Ashley will keep going. Also, you'll have the opportunity to speak when we make a motion. So if y'all have anything y'all would like to put input, that would be the time. Once again, there'll be 3 minutes, and again, Ashley will take care of it. So, with that, Ashley, have you had to call the roll?
Member Andrew? Member Andrew?
Present.
Member Certain?
Here.
Member Chance? Member Cornell? Member Ferrero?
Here.
Member Hart? Here. Member Labarda? Member Pinkeson? Member Twombly?
Here. Yes, no way.
Or YouTube or something.
Thank you. Next item will be the approval of the opportunity event. Second, discussion. Any public discussion? Being none, all those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The motion is unanimous. The next item will be old business, two. The next item will be general public comments. So if anybody would like to come up and speak to the board about something that isn't on the agenda, this would be the time to do so. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Chairman of the Board. My name is Phil Tabler, and I'm the CEO of PBS Family and Behavioral Health Services. As a number of you know, we were there. We opened up last Thursday the ribbon cutting on our new interface youth shelter in Louisville, and I know Director Cutter was there, and Liz Casey was there, and a number of other folks were there. And I'd just like to extend the invitation to anybody who wants to come take a walkthrough of this new 20-bag youth shelter, replacing the existing one. Although we're going to do more state-of-the-art services. And thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you for what you're doing. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. My name is Elio. Yeah,
I am going to speak to.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
That's fine.
So my name is Elio. Yeah, I am the founder of the Fiesta Radio 95.7, and we're the very first and only Latino radio station covering the entire Alachua County. And really, I came to learn more about this meeting. Very important to me, being the voice of the Latino community. We are serving almost 50,000 Latinos in Alachua County. And I truly came to say thank you, Marsha. Thank you so much. And thank you, Liz. You guys have been a tremendous asset for our community. And on behalf of 575 kids that they've been able to attend to summer camps, we've been able to be part of the non-violence initiative, working with Chief Morgan personally, and because of you two, it's been amazing, wonderful working with you. Thank you so much, Marsha. Thank you, Liz. Your work is tremendous, and we appreciate you both, and we appreciate you, the trust of Alachua County. I just came to say that. Thank you.
Thank you for coming and saying hello. We appreciate it. Anyone else? Please come forward. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, members of the board, Mrs. Kleiner. Thank you for all your support and help and just being a really great advocate for this community. We appreciate that. My name is Tequila Paul. I serve as the Executive Director of the Education Foundation of Owasso County. And you all are supporting our Take Stock in Children program by allowing us to now have year-long mentoring. We're only able to do that throughout the school year for our students. And I can tell you that those connections over the summer made going back into the schools such a pleasure for our mentors. We were able to take in 66 new students with the support of you all helping with our staffing. We have an opportunity from the state of Florida to get matching funds for the student scholarships. They get a 2-year Florida prepaid scholarship. These are low-income at-risk youth that are at the poverty line, but we don't have enough funding on the staffing side. And so you all have come in and really supported that, and that has made a world of difference for us, especially this summer with that opportunity. So I wanted to come and personally thank you. I have testimonials from our staff. I'm gonna have some pictures of our summer events and opportunities. We leveraged those dollars and were able to bring in free food for the students to come out to these. We have the staffing support, but we do not have funds for food. And so Cowboys and Hurricanes also help to provide food for these opportunities, as well as Maple Street provided biscuits so these people would come together. And so we leverage those dollars, not only for the staffing piece, but looked at other places in the community that we could partner to make sure that these events were really helping our students. And so we served 314 students last year.
And it takes a lot of funding support for our students for the scholarship piece of it. But the mentoring and the 5 to 6 years of service that is provided by our team and by the individuals of this community who serve as one-on-one mentors for these students really makes a difference. So thank you so much for your support. And I will leave these testimonials in our annual report at the back table.
Okay, thank you. And it's a great program. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. Thank y'all very much for taking the time to come speak to us. We really appreciate it, especially when y'all, say what a great job that Marcia and company are doing. So we appreciate it. Old business, Marcia, you gonna take the lead?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If you all will remember, back at your meeting in, I believe it was May, with the county, there was a discussion about a gun violence initiative. And you voted to put $250,000 into gun violence, asked for staff to bring your recommendation in partnership with the county and the city. In August, after conversations with the county and the city, realizing they were not going to be able to put together their proposal and execute any contracts within the limited amount of time that we had, we asked you to allow us to bring back to you a full proposal. And staff has done that. I'm going to ask Brandy to come forward and present their proposal.
Good afternoon.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I know the folks online were having a hard time hearing. Can everyone hear me? No.
There.
Is that light on?
Into the
You can,
The light is on here.
you can hold it up, hold it from the base.
yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Nancy, can you hear? No.
She's shaking her head no. She can't hear. Let me turn up the volume.
Speak louder into the mic.
I can talk very loud. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Brandy Stone. I'm the Community Health Director with Gainesville Fire Rescue at the City of Gainesville, and I'll be sharing with you all our proposal for the $500,000 towards gun violence prevention. Do we have the PowerPoint to pull up? So you all do have a narrative. I believe that was in your backup. We've turned that into a brief presentation, and I'll be walking through all of those components this afternoon. Before we really get started into the content, wanted to acknowledge that putting together this proposal was a very collaborative effort. We worked with our partners at the county, we worked with our partners at Santa Fe College, and the community at large through our Gun Violence Prevention Alliance to put this together. Next slide, please. So as you all may be familiar, in June, the city, Santa Fe College, and Alachua County signed and entered into an agreement to form what is called the Gun Violence Prevention Alliance. And really this group is formed to identify solutions and strategies across our community to prevent gun violence and violent crime, really to look at what are evidence-based or evidence-supported programs in which to do that. How are we collecting data on these things and reporting it out to the community? And how are we prioritizing a trauma-informed approach to doing this, recognizing that our community as a whole is impacted by this, but we do have significant portions of our community that have been very directly impacted by this issue. Next slide, please. Last year, in 2023, both the City of Gainesville Commission as well as the Board of County Commissioners declared gun violence a public health crisis. And so the way that we are looking at approaching our gun violence prevention and intervention initiatives is really through a public health lens. And so we're doing that by using some theories to guide that work. The first is the Center for Disease Control and Prevention Social Ecological Model, which looks at the different levels of influence that things have in our lives and how those things play into each other. So those levels are the individual level, the relationship level, the community level, and the societal level. That individual level is that attitude, skills, knowledge, and behavior that we all hold as individuals. The relationship is our close personal relationships. The larger community, the institutions that we engage with on a daily basis, schools and workplaces, and then the larger societal and policy, which really takes into account our community culture as well as any laws that may be in this. Slide, please. So in addition to looking at the social ecological model, we recognize that when we are taking into account prevention efforts, that they should span what we call the levels of prevention, as well as look at increasing protective factors and decreasing risk factors. I'm sure many of you all, given the nature of your work, are familiar with these things, but really building up those social supports, the career aspirations, and working to decrease or counter exposure to violence, substance use, and things like that. And we want to recognize that spectrum of prevention from the primary to the secondary to the tertiary, recognizing that we have folks in our community that have varying levels of exposure or experience when it comes to violence. Next slide, please. So now that we've given a little bit of that background, we'll move to the funding proposal in and of itself. If we could go to the next slide, please. This proposal was put together, as we mentioned, as a collaborative effort. This has been brought to the Alliance, which is a collaborative group of stakeholders, not just the city, county, and Santa Fe, but also is open to the community. We have law enforcement, we have nonprofits that come. We've had art folks in the art space come. We've had community activists and smaller nonprofits join us as well. And those meetings will continue to be open to the public, but we did bring this proposal back to that group at our most recent meeting, and most that we got feedback from were in favor. So the first component of this funding proposal is to do grant-funded projects, a call for projects. We would fund 6 projects at up to $33,000 each, resulting in a total of $198,000. Some of these projects would focus on mental health, family engagement, being proactive, partnership-based, learning through play, and then focus on those out of school times, like after school and summertime. The call for projects we envision will be informed through what we've learned through One Nation, One Project, which is a local arts and wellness initiative that work to reduce youth gun violence by increasing exposure and engagement of youth in the arts and cultural experiences. Some of these lessons that we've learned specifically were the intentionality behind youth programming, but we also learned a lot about support that these organizations might need through the application process, as well as in the execution of their grant-funded projects. We have talked with Ms. Kiner about the relationship that the Children's Trust has with the Community Foundation, maybe leveraging some of their expertise in this space. This is something that the county would oversee. They would oversee the grant-funded projects with support from the Alliance MOU partners that I've mentioned before. And a grant manager would likely be needed to help support the successful implementation of these projects over the year. So we've also included the funding for a temporary grant manager in this component as well. Next slide, please.
So the grant manager is only for the time during when this money is going to be utilized?
Correct.
And then after that, there's not going to be a position there?
So I would defer to the county to see if there would be continuing opportunities for that person. But in this specific realm, we were thinking that this person would be there to help manage the contracts, the deliverables, the inputs and outputs that would be needed for the grant-funded projects.
Okay.
The next component is a strategic planning consultant. There has been a lot of desire throughout the community to have a strategic plan when it comes to gun violence efforts. And we know that there are a number of institutions or companies that can come in and facilitate that process for us. So we've budgeted $30,000 for strategic planning consultant. We did bring this to the August 2024 meeting of the Alliance, and you can see some of the priorities that our community stakeholders listed as things that they would want to see from the entity that's selected to do the strategic planning. So some things were really focused on being innovative, community engagement, someone who's local, recognizing those who are impacted as valuable stakeholders in the process as well.
Yes, I'm sorry, Tina.
For this strategic planning, do you have, you said this has been done before. Could you give us possibly one we could go and read a strategic plan, like the one, something similar that we would be doing here?
Sure. I don't have any on the top of my head, but I do know New York City has quite a blueprint. Los Angeles as well has a blueprint. And I can definitely look into that and get those links out to folks. We do have Dr. Asha Brunings here is from Santa Fe College as well, and she has really expressed interest in kind of taking the lead in the strategic planning realm and is already kind of starting to feel out what some possible proposals could look like for us here locally. Next slide, please. The next component of our proposal is violence interruption and training. So currently, violence interruption is something that is being done through the city of Gainesville. We've been partnering with the Willie Mae Stokes Community Center to do that. That work is temporary. It is funded through the end of November of this year and has been pretty limited to within the city of Gainesville limits. So this proposal includes continuing and expanding violence interruption and that community outreach work that has gone into that as well. So expanding beyond the city of Gainesville limits, but also extending beyond the November 30th contract that currently exists. Some of the things included in that contract include funding a network to disrupt the cycle of violence, which would be our violence interrupters, and then also building relationships with some of the entities in our community to reach young folks, and then providing a warm handoff to local resources when they do encounter someone who is interested in getting connected to services, and then ongoing education and awareness about gun violence in general in our community. This also would include training and mental health support for the folks doing this work. We know that this work is not easy and often can be traumatic for folks that are doing it every day. So we've included some funding to support those individuals with mental health support, but also continuing education so that they feel the most equipped to be successful at their roles. This would be overseen by Impact GMV, which is the city of Gainesville's gun violence efforts to continue to oversee the violence interruption services with, of course, regular updates to the Alliance and any boards as recommended. Next slide, please.
Sorry, so when I read this, I read about stipends for ministers or something along that nature, and I was wondering, can you help me with that?
In our original proposal, we did include stipends for faith-based leaders. Currently, under the contract that we have with the Willie Mae Stokes Center, we have a couple of faith-based leaders who are engaging directly with the communities that surround their church or their, parishioners, and working to kind of build a little bit of rapport as it relates to gun violence in those communities to increase their education efforts and outreach efforts from that faith-based lens and building like credible messengers.
And are ministers the only ones included in this? Because there are other folks in the community that possibly outside of the ministerial alliance is what I'm asking. Or is this stipend only for faith-based ministers?
So that is the way the contract currently exists at the city. It is for faith-based leaders. That's not to say that there isn't a possibility that would grow or change based on the direction that the board would like this funding to take. But that is the way the contract is currently at the city.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead, yes.
So, 150,000 for violence interrupters, you said it's managed by Impact GNV,
Yes, sir.
and what's that?
Impact GMV is the city's gun violence initiative. It's just the name we have for the
So
city's
it's a
gun violence
city,
initiative.
okay, so that's a department within the city or the initiative within the city.
Yes, sir.
And the 150,000 is devoted solely to faith-based?
No, it would be 125,000 for the violence interruption, and a portion of that could be used for faith-based engagement if the board decided to go that way. That is the way the current city contract is. And then the 25,000 would be for the mental health support and the additional training.
Okay, but essentially, we would be just providing the funding to Impact Gainesville, and then they would decide, unless the board specified a different use. Under the existing, how much has the city of Gainesville budgeted for 25, fiscal year 25, for Impact Gainesville?
So the current contract that exists with the Willie Mae Stokes Foundation was from July through November, and that was $45,000. After that, and the contract ends, as of right now, we are unsure of what will continue with
Okay,
the
so
violence
this would
interruption.
continue that essentially,
Yes,
plus.
if,
add-
and
okay.
expand if that's the
Continue and
desire.
expand, right, because 45,000 for a short period from the city of Gainesville. So this funding that was for the whole, but this would be for the fiscal year, October 1st through, right, but this essentially would take what they've started with the Willie Mae Stokes and allow them to expand it.
And we could also keep it open to other folks that are interested in violence interruption per Ms. Certan's comments as well, if there's other folks from the community that want to be involved in violence.
Yeah, I mean, and I'll defer back to you, but what I have heard from many folks at the city, and specifically from Commissioner Desmond Duncan Walker, who has led that charge, is that having individuals that are well-known in certain neighborhoods and areas that are targeted, where we have had a history of either gun violence or a potential for gun violence, that those, and they are not associated with any faith-based organization. They are just people that know people that the community trust, which for me, this is all about trust. This is about
100%.
the neighborhood trusting the person, not just, oh, well, that person's getting paid. This is about the neighborhood trust the person because I've known them for 30 years. And they are incredibly effective. And as are faith-based people that have a level of trust, there are some that don't, but there are many more that do. And so for me, that's really, really important because I want to make sure that they have an opportunity to be included in this fund.
Absolutely.
I
And I'll.
conclude.
Nancy Hart has a question.
Thank you. I can't see. Dr. Hart?
She put it in the chat. So, yeah, so,
I don't have my hand up. I'm just writing in the chat.
it may get missed, Dr. Hart, so maybe you go ahead and say it since you've gotten it. Go ahead and ask your question and I'll wait. Go ahead.
Oh, but
Or
I have
whatever
so
you put in the
many,
chat.
I have so many questions. You're gonna hate me. So I'm just writing them down and then maybe at the end, if they haven't been answered, I'll ask them. How's that? I don't
Okay.
want to interrupt Brandy's flow. She needs to
Okay.
keep it
All right.
going.
So, Member Cornell stated exactly where I was going with my questioning. I don't want to limit this to just be ministers because there are people that are unchurched. I mean, I call myself the pew baby, but there are a lot of people who are not, who don't have a regular or an affiliation with the church. And there are people in our community that are doing this. And if we just keep this as the current city contract is, I'm concerned that we have boxed out people who could possibly help with this initiative. And that is what I don't want to do. So thank you for.
That is why we left it a little bit more open. But I'll also introduce Brittany Coleman. She's our gun violence intervention program manager and has been working directly with interruption. So she can answer a little bit.
And just to add on real quick, Brittany, before you go, the city's contract is for services within the city.
Correct.
This, though, expands it to the entire county. Is that?
Yeah, this would help us expand. Good afternoon, Brittany Coleman.
Mr. Chair, Ms. Kiner, thank you for this opportunity. Yeah, just to add clarity to Ms. Certain question, the way that we have structured the contract as it currently sits with the city is that the Willie Mae Stokes Center is responsible for helping us with our violence interruption and with community outreach. It's two separate parts of their structure. So the violence interruption, they've been able to build a relationship with Inspire Florida, which is run by Caleb Young, who's been in the community for I think he's born and raised here, but a number of years, worked out of the Gainesville Police Department, kind of help oversee some of their structure as it relates to violence interruption. And he's also working with some of the folks in the community that are these trusted messengers that have, I think, really deep relationships and roots in this community. And so that is a separate entity than the faith-based portion of this, although all of the things that we do are working kind of in tandem and in concert with each other. So the faith-based portion of this contract is more so for the community outreach, understanding that there are a number of religious institutions and churches in a lot of our communities, and how do we leverage some of those to do some of this outreach? So there are two separate
So
portions.
Caleb
and
would
I
be
think
involved
it's-
in this.
Yes.
Caleb, he would, I mean, he was specifically who I was thinking about when I was talking.
Yeah, and as it stands with the city right now, that's who Willie Mae Stokes is working with directly,
Awesome.
that 501c3. And the hope is that with this continued funding, they could expand that work, bring on more folks from other areas of the county that are also kind of embedded and trusted in their communities to expand the reach that they've been able
And
to
what's Caleb's nonprofit name?
inspire Florida.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. I'm gonna continue
Sure.
until we interrupt you again.
So, our next component is the additional facilitator for the Youth Steering Committee. So the Youth Steering Committee is a group that convened in February 2023 under One Nation, One Project Gainesville. It's managed by the Youth Services Division of the City of Gainesville's Park, Recreation, and Cultural Affairs Department. It's a group of young people who gather. They're 16 to 24 years old. And we have folks from across Alachua County in that group. They have guided us on many project components around One Nation, One Project, and also have helped us to be able to elevate the youth voice in city-led initiatives, especially around arts and well-being activities. So the Youth Steering Committee, fortunately, even though One Nation, One Project concluded in July, will continue to convene and will connect with the Alliance and Impact Gainesville, which is the city's gun violence initiatives, led by Cherie Kelly, who's the Youth Services and Education Manager at Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Affairs. The funding for the member stipends, so we are able to compensate the young people that participate in this group, which is wonderful. We do have funding for those stipends through the National League of Cities. It's an agreement between the City of Gainesville and the National League of Cities. So we are proposing an additional facilitator join that group to continue on the growth of that group. So in addition to advising some of the city's efforts and One Nation, One Project, these young folks are engaged in professional development, conversations, and some skill building as well. And we believe that an additional facilitator will complement that work. So that's $47.50 for the facilitator's time for the year, as well as some funding for additional materials and supplies for the facilitation. And then next slide. So under the Alliance, Santa Fe College has employed an administrative assistant to Dr. Asha Brunings. This is a part-time position that assists her with the gun violence work from Santa Fe, as well as the administration of the Alliance in general. This position is currently staffed, but funding is needed for the next fiscal year to fund this person for 20 hours per week. This is a total of $21,500. This position is specifically responsible for helping us to set up and coordinate the meetings, sending out invitations, taking notes and minutes at those meetings, following up on stakeholder requests within those meetings, putting together the presentations, and gathering proposals for service from the Alliance as well.
And will that be an ongoing position?
I will defer to Dr. Asha Brunings for that.
This person would be specifically these 20 hours?
You want to come to the podium, please? Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Asha Brunings, and I'm the Interim Executive Director of Organization and Community Engagement at Santa Fe College. This particular position, the 20 hours a week, are dedicated exclusively to the Alliance, and we intend to keep this position as long as the Alliance is around.
Okay, thank you. Tina.
So Tina, I asked, what was Santa Fe's, investment in this initiative, you know, cause like what I'm fearful of is like the trust is bringing all the resources and
We're gonna
There-
have a discussion about that.
they're the convener of the thing, but I'm wondering what other skin do they have in the game besides the person says we're funding it, you know, and I think that's even from the city's perspective and the county's perspective. Like, I don't want this to just kind of like end up being just something that gets put slap dab in the middle of the trust. Yes, we do have it and we can reach out to everyone, but I think it should really be a collaboration and not just a collaboration in name only. Everybody should have some skin in the game. And I was wondering, when I saw this, I was wondering, well, what's Santa Fe's skin in the game if we're maybe.
So Santa Fe College is committed to working with the community and expanding our community work. My salary is included in this, and it's you know, I'm not rich, but it's not insignificant. It's not nothing, and we put a lot of our time and effort in this in this alliance. I'm hoping that Brandy, Brittany, Carl can speak to that, to the work that Santa Fe is doing. We're also making our facilities available for all our meetings. Right.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'd also be happy to share the MOU that has been signed between the city and the county and Santa Fe, because it does outline the responsibilities of all three parties within that. That would be helpful as well.
That would be.
Next slide, please. And the last component of our proposal is what we are calling technology hub carts. This is something that we've heard from a lot of folks in the community, especially around you know, access for kids when it comes to technology and resources. So what we came up with was an idea of having a cart that could be secure, that would hold laptops, and that these devices could be, or these carts could be placed in community centers in areas that we know of are either have been impacted by gun violence or are high risk of being impacted by gun violence. We could fit 18 laptops in each of these carts, and we've proposed having 7 carts. These would be, of course, worked on with the sites themselves that are receiving these to determine what the best course of action would be for their sites. And ideally, we'd have programming either focusing on that technology or programming developed based on the availability of the technology in those spaces. So we would partner with the center to do that. So we are looking at 7 carts with 18 laptops each. That comes to $50,344 for the technology carts. Yes, the last slide is just the budget overall by the numbers. And then I believe, I had the implementation timeline on here as well, if folks are interested in what exactly the rollout of these things would look like. So specifically looking at the first quarter of FY25, that would be creating and releasing the RFP for the grant projects and hiring the grant manager, working with the community foundation to provide information sessions on the grant program, contracting with our youth steering committee additional facilitator, choosing and contracting with a strategic planning consultant, selecting the violence interruption organization and initiating that contract, and then identifying the technology cart sites and beginning to draft an agreement with those centers or organizations. The second quarter, reviewing and selecting the RFPs through the grant process, initiating contracts with those projects, beginning the strategic planning process, starting the violence interruption or continuing the violence interruption, and then purchasing those technology carts. Quarter 3, implementing the grant-funded projects that were selected in Q2, ongoing technical assistance and support for those grant projects. The strategic planning process would continue in this, as well as violence interruption. The technology carts would be implemented at the sites, and data collection on those things would begin. In the fourth quarter, the grant-funded projects will continue to be implemented. There'd be ongoing support and technical assistance. The strategic plan by this time will have been developed. violence interruption will of course continue. The tech cart sites will be underway, and ongoing data collection and analysis on those things.
Okay.
That is all I have.
Thank you very much, Ms. Sun. We appreciate it. And right now you probably get barraged with questions. So I'm going to start with Dr. Hart. You said you had a bunch of questions. So because we don't usually acknowledge you first, we're going to today.
Hi, that's really great. Thanks. So I have 100 questions, and I'm really very much aligned with Tina Certon's question about who has skin in the game, because I sort of feel like the trust is being asked for money and then not having any say about whether the activities are evidence-based or not. And I feel like we didn't get very much information about what city and Santa Fe have been doing since July. Probably a lot of really good stuff has happened, but we don't have that information. So that's why I asked in the chat about things like, is there a report from what the Willie Mae Stokes Center has been working on since July? Is there evidence that anything is working? How many youth are participating in the youth steering committee? There's a little bit of money there, and you need another employee there, but who's that employee going to work for? Who will they report to? And then I would have to say my biggest issue is with the computer part of it, because in my review of the literature, and it was pretty cursory, you guys may know more than I do, but in my cursory review of the literature, it looks like computer access just enhances violent activity on the part of teenagers especially. And then the one report that I read was for 8 to 14-year-olds. So I'm a little concerned that what it sounds like is exactly the way the Children's Trust got started, which was without a strategic plan. And then I feel like the strategic plan happens at the end of all the funding of these projects. So I guess I have a lot of concern about the evidence basis for the projects and the lateness of the strategic plan in the game.
Would you like to respond, Ms. Stone?
I would like to. Thank you. Ms. Hart, I will try to address some of the questions, and please feel free to jump back in if I miss any of them. We are happy to provide some insight into what has been happening with the violence interruption. We do provide quarterly updates, regular updates to the City Commission on these things. So I'm happy to pull those, and Ms. Coleman may be able to speak more to some of the reports that we get, but we are happy to provide some of that information. In terms of the youth steering committee, currently there are 6 youth engaged in that, but we do have room for 10. So we are actively recruiting for more youth to join the youth steering committee because we do have funding to fund up to 10 youth with the stipends that we have available. The individual that would be coming on to facilitate would be an independent contractor that the city would work with to do that because this is a city-led initiative through the Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Affairs Department. And the last question specifically around the technology hubs, I did pull some data from the 2024 Alachua County Community Health Assessment, which was just completed earlier this year. Roughly 20% of the folks that responded to that survey do not have internet service. And the top reasons that were cited included poor reception or service where they live, affordability, and lack of access to a personal computer. And so by implementing these, we think that will increase that access, hopefully for that 20% if we are able to, but really working to your point about the way that the technology is used to have programming that either surrounds those computers or programs that are already embedded in the spaces where the computers are so that they're being used intentionally.
Judge.
My question is about the computers also. What is the evidence-based practice? What are you going to be doing with the computers? I heard what you just said, but I don't really understand how the computers relate to preventing gun violence. Can you help me with that?
Sure. So when we look at the social determinants of health and public health in general, we know education, access, and quality is one of the keys of the 5 social determinants of health, which we know are related to the social determinants of crime. So by increasing access to computers and having intentional programming around those, we believe that increases the education access, thereby decreasing
So
both.
how are you going to get these kids who are carrying guns around to the computers? What's gonna motivate them to go there to get, because they're not motivated to go to, I mean, I unfortunately see a lot of them through the court system. I just don't know how, tell me what the process will be that you get them there.
We would want to work with the centers intentionally that have been selected to house these hubs to identify either what programs already exist that we could support around those computers, or what programs, where's their gap in programming and how do we get folks into that space.
Where are they gonna be?
We're not sure. That was one of the things that we would want to do in that first quarter, is identify those sites based on, we would use data to inform that, look what areas have high rates of gun violence or at high risk, and then identify some of the centers or buildings or organizations that are around that and see if they'd be willing to partner with us on this.
I really understand it, but maybe I'll figure it out as we go along. Thank you.
Barry? To Dr. Hart's point, does the application process for the grant-funded projects, what does that look like? Is there a requirement of evidence-based practices or documenting that?
So that process will be led by the county. So I will defer to our partners at the county for some of that. But one of the things that we did highlight in the proposal specifically around the funded projects is that would be the RFP would be written using insights that we've gleaned through One Nation, One Project, and we've been able to fund a number of organizations through that. We've been collecting a lot of data and have gotten a lot of lessons learned from our local community, especially by surveying youth to better understand what they want to see in the community. So we would leverage the insights and the knowledge that we've gained through that process to inform this call for proposals. But like I said, I will defer to the county because they will be leading that.
Smart.
Mr. Chair, fine, members of the board. I think the question was about the process that the county would be using for the grants.
For the criteria.
The
for the grants.
criteria?
Yeah.
Yes. In the small grant program, we're looking for neighborhood groups, small groups that are already doing this kind of work. We know they're out there. Some of them have already approached the county and the city to let them know that they're already working with groups of children, groups of adults after school, and mentoring and teaching and just being with them, spending time with them, and helping them to find other things to do that are productive versus getting into trouble. So the small grants is intended to allow them to be very flexible and allow them to apply for up to $10,000 each unit to do that kind of a project. One example is the Pine Ridge area. There is a lady out there who meets with a group regularly after school. They have an apartment unit that they use for meeting, community center, and the group is consistent in meeting and learning and developing these kids. What they need is capital, and we can provide the capital. And the county is prepared to do that, to expand that program. You're right. The question was talking about dealing with people in neighborhoods who people trust. They have a relationship with them. And so that's the intent of the program. It is a RFA, it's a request for applications, but it's not as rigid and not as strict as our regular RFP program.
Okay.
So you said 10,000, but so that's different than the 6 projects funded to up to 33,000? Am I misunderstanding?
Sorry, what's the question again, please?
So the, it calls for grant funded projects, 243,356 projects funded up to 33,000 each.
Okay.
That's what I was asking about, like what are the criteria or the process, and I don't know what the $10,000 thing is.
So
Is that
we have one on the street right now, are preparing to go on the street for 50,000. That will be up to $10,000 per grant.
So it's
That's an
one
additional-
grant, but it's 10,000 per grant, so a 33,000 could be 3 grants of 11. No, is that different?
Nope.
Two
Oh,
separate things. That's why I'm confused.
Yeah, so Mr. Smart is referring to the county's small grant program.
Oh.
This program would be 33 per entity, up to 6 projects funded.
Would it only be nonprofits that could be funded? Or are we talking about like the natural leaders in the community who have kind of set up a grassroots program?
Combination of both?
Yeah, I think we'd be okay.
Yeah, combination of both.
Tina,
Nonprofits as well as individuals.
Tina.
Thanks. So I had, it sounds like we would be using some of, not the same people for out of school time providers, but in that same space, it sounds like it. If we have contact with kids, but I want to loop back to the computers. Ms. Andrew, the district has gone to one-to-one devices with the schools. And I'm wondering, I've heard some that they have devices, but no internet on the devices. Like the devices we're giving out now, the students don't have internet, correct?
They're moving to one at the school level for testing, but not everyone's one-to-one for take-home devices.
So they're not take-home, they're just there. Because that's what I was wondering, I'm not noticing, I'm not figuring out the connection between the technology and decreasing that. I know the educational aspect, they do need them, but was wondering, and since you don't have a site location for them, that was the other thing I was wondering about, where they would be. And I'm wanting to make sure that we, and all of the things we're doing, the grants up to 33,000. I know the 10,000 one that Mr. Smart was just talking about is countywide, but all of these, I want us to make sure we're not just focusing on the city of Gainesville, that we don't forget about our surrounding areas. And that's another question that I had. I know the city is a convener. We don't have any, city of Gainesville is a convener, as well as the county and the trust, and how are we gonna make sure we don't, the folks on the, out of an incorporated area and the other municipalities don't get left out of this.
And thank you for that, Ms. Certain. With the technology hubs, those were also not planned just in the city. We would look outside into the outer municipalities to make sure that folks in those communities also had access, and also why we wanted to expand the violence intervention out into the other municipalities across the county.
The program with the interruptions with William A. Stokes Center was started as pilot program with the city. The county was not a part of that contract, that agreement, but we were watching to see if it would be successful or not. And so with the funds that the Children's Trust is considering now providing, we could expand that into the county, throughout the county. There are areas, you're right, in the rural areas and the suburban areas that also need this kind of intervention. And so.
What type of data do you have? Could you share that with us on the current interrupter program that's in place? Like, so we could look at that and see. I'm not trying to micromanage the process. I'm just trying to get informed on what we're doing and its effectiveness.
Yeah, so we are currently working with Bishop Stokes and William A. Stokes Center to compile all of that, but they are tracking the neighborhoods that they are in. I know we're very focused on the hotspot areas, if you will, where we've seen that uptick in gun violence. So we do know kind of the areas they're targeting, the time that they're spending there, the conflicts that they're mediating, the types of conflicts too, like do they start online or in the school or their fights. So we're starting to parse some of that out as well. But we do have, we can put that together.
And I've heard violence is down. I've heard that you recently reported to the city that the data is showing that. Is that right?
Yeah, the GPD's recent quarterly update there over the summer was a 22% decrease in violence, specifically gun violence. And we know that that's a collaborative effort. GPD's made a really significant push to get a lot of the legal firearms off the street. Violence interruption has been in those areas that have been identified as hotspots at those times where conflict tends to be the highest. And so with a lot of the collaborative efforts, yes, we absolutely have seen a decrease.
The swag area is in the county, so how is that? If it's GPD with their report, that probably doesn't include the swag area.
No, I don't think GPD's report included the swag area, but yeah,
The
again, with
PBD
this
and the
funding,
sheriff are working very close.
be
Okay.
able to expand for sure.
Okay, any other questions? Because I have a few. Okay, Ken.
Okay, so, first of all, thank you guys. You know, at the last meeting or the meeting before, we said, let's not spend $250,000 on laptops, bring us back a plan. And this is a completely different presentation from that one, and I have to say thank you for that. I've been involved on the county side, as you all know, for quite some time, and, I feel like we are based, because of the trust, really able to put some real resources around some preliminary infrastructure with the Alliance. I will tell you that the county has devoted $150,000 for next year, which does not include Mr. Smart, Mr. Talkovich, and a whole bunch of other staff. I believe Santa Fe and their staff have devoted time and resources. And I know the city, I think you have, what, 250 in your budget? What's the amount in your fiscal year 25 budget for gun violence?
So there was 150 dedicated ARPA dollars earlier this year. And then at the September 9th, 12th meeting of the commission, they also allocated an additional $173,000 to gun violence for programming, as well as moving forward some of our youth steering committee recommendations.
Yeah, so 173, more than the county. We've got to work on that. And a huge amount of resource staff time with just both of you and many, many others that I know are doing these meetings. So I feel like the county, the city, Santa Fe is really leaning in, not 500,000 and not 250,000, but hopefully if you add it up all the staff time, it probably far exceeds 250, and we need to get there. So I have a couple of tough questions directly for you. So you said at the Alliance, most were in favor. Who was not in favor of this plan? And why were they not in?
So I'm sorry for interrupting. So we proposed this plan at the end of our last meeting, and we ran out of time to be totally transparent. So in the room, we showed the plan and asked folks to reach out to us for feedback or with feedback if they had any concerns, and we didn't get reached out to for any concerns. But this was something that we did share with them. City, county staff, and Santa Fe staff worked on this for weeks leading up to this, taking into account a number of pieces of input that we had all gotten through our respective worlds as well.
Okay, so it sounds like no one was really not in favor. It was just you ran out of time. I mean, if there's things that they're not in favor, I just want to hear them. I don't, you may have talked them out, and I'm just curious.
No, it's a great question. So we have the last couple of Alliance meetings introduced the CTAC funding that we originally thought it was 250. So we've talked about these grant funded projects for a while. Folks did want them to be very localized. They wanted us to look at nonprofits, grassroots organizations. With the strategic plan, I think everybody's on board that we need a strategic plan for sure, but I think there was also just some feedback on do we have to go with an outside agency to do that? Can it be more localized? Can we look at resources that we already have available? So there was some feedback on those things.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I've heard from when we had the joint meeting with the county, and we had Joe Kim Noah there. The feedback I heard was great concept. We don't need to hire outside people. We have all the local people with the local expertise and the local relationships. Let's engage that concept. And I feel like that's what this is doing. We're supercharging the county's grant program with the things we've learned. We're funding and expanding the funding of what the city's already doing with the 150. We're not spending 250 on laptops, but we're providing a little bit of money that can be used in 7 different locations and can extend past the year. We're paying for a strategic plan that I presume the goal would be to be done by the end of 2025, so that that would then direct county and city, here's some more resources we need, and here's a direction. School board, this is the things we've learned. CTAC, I see you have 10% for safety. Maybe you could target this. And so I feel like, talking to my colleagues now, I feel like this is exactly what we asked Marcia and her staff to push back on the Alliance and have the Alliance bring back to us. Cause there's not going to be 500,000 in 2026 from the trust. Well, unless you all tell her that, I can pretty much guarantee that. So I'm hopeful that this massive amount of funding from the trust will, and we're gonna be convening, I think, a lot of meetings with Santa Fe. Okay, monthly meetings, and we'll be getting monthly data back from GPD and the sheriff. The grants will be providing information. The city's programs will be providing information. So I feel like we're gonna be set as a community with 500, 173, 150, 800, well over $1 million, I would say, spent in this community on this issue from 3 separate institutions or 4 separate organizations to put us in a position at the end of 2025 with really a pathway of, okay, maybe we now have an office of gun violence. Where does it reside? Does it reside in the city? Does it reside at the county? We have partners within the community that are doing this work county-wide. Where do they report to? And so I'm really, really happy, Marcia, with this, where we are. And I guess I would say the only thing I'm not happy about is the county and the city's $150,000 commitment. I think that's gotta change. I feel like I have the county commission ready to do that in the next fiscal year, at least the ones that have expressed a real interest. So I think that will increase. I don't know if 250 is the right number for fiscal year 26. We'll talk about that as a board as we start to get this data back. And I think the city probably also has appetite for hopefully increasing a little bit their funding. So I'm in favor of ready to move forward. I obviously don't like 50,000 for computer carts initially, but I feel like that's long-term, something we can utilize. And everything I keep saying is we need to have things for kids to do, places for them to go, and show them other options. And I feel like many of the kids, this will help open up some options. I think it'll also provide some facilitators with tools that they have that's not just PowerPoints, it's actually tools. And so I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it. The 50 feet.
Okay, in 4 minutes, we're gonna have to recess to do the budget. That'll take about 10 minutes and then we'll get back into this. Yes, ma'am. Did you want to add something?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify a little about how the Alliance, I guess we got the impression that we just throw this at the Alliance and tell them like, get back to us. But I wanted to let you know that we've been working for monthly meetings to gather information from the stakeholders in the Alliance, and we use that to build this proposal. So they were a bit in this from the beginning. And although at the last meeting we ran out of time to get the feedback immediately from them, they were all given access to an electronic copy that they could have given feedback. And it's not that everybody was like entirely on board. There were some, there were some criticisms. Some people say this is too little, too late. We're not doing anything. This doesn't address the overarching problems of homelessness and transportation. So there were some real criticisms about like how do we allocate budgets for grants. If they're mainly reimbursement based, then this is a problem. So we took all that feedback into account when we put this proposal together, which is why we didn't get as much pushback at the end of it. And the other thing I briefly wanted to say about Santa Fe's skin in the game, to reiterate, we have skin in the game that is outlined in the MOU. We are responsible for gathering all the data we're collecting. We're responsible for the science-based data. I'm a scientist, so we're definitely dedicated to having a data-based approach to this. We are responsible for sharing this data with the rest of the community. So the college definitely has real skin in the game beyond just giving out their facilities. We are also the data persons.
Thank you. Okay, y'all had around. I want to ask a couple questions. Ms. Stone, you said that, okay? And then after I ask these questions, we're gonna recess.
Okay.
You said right now on your youth steering committee, you have 6 people, okay? And you want to get it up to 10. And I would imagine this is gonna be involved in your strategic plan. That's gonna have something, this committee is gonna be involved. What we found is that, you're gonna need probably a lot more input than from 6 to 10 people as far as, how to go about solving this issue. So what are your plans to get the public involved, with your strategic plan? Because that was a big component with ours, and I think that ours, to me, I think ultimately we're very successful, but we had hundreds of people that were ultimately involved because we went out to the communities and had, had events and gathered input, and it wasn't a short process. So kind of, do you mind cluing me in as to how y'all are gonna go about this process?
Sure. So as Dr. Brunings and Brittany mentioned, this has been something that's brought up by the Alliance, so we would continue to engage that stakeholder group in this as well. We've had over 30, probably closer to 40 folks join us in every one of those meetings that represent a lot of sectors. So we would leverage the, collective reach of those groups as well. But one of the things that the community provided feedback to us on specifically about the strategic plan was that community engagement was like top priority. So we would be, when we are going out and looking at entities that could be providing this, that would be something that is very important for us to be able to identify in that entity that we contract with, that community engagement would be of the utmost importance. And we do plan on bringing any proposals that we get to the stakeholder meeting of the Alliance for the community to continue to give their input into what that looks like.
Okay, all right. And the other thing is, I think, y'all, obviously a lot of work has gone into this. I don't see this as we've made it's been a 2-year commitment to funding, from last year and then again this year. I don't know what it would be in the future. And so I'm assuming that right now we take the approach that it's one-time funding. And there's some things on here that are gonna, in my opinion, they're gonna be ongoing. I ultimately think the grant manager. Okay, have a seat and we will recess and I'll continue on. Thank you, Marcia.
It's time certain.
Okay, I'm gonna recess this meeting, and we will bring that back up and momentarily. But I will call to order, the Children's Trust of Alachua County, the public hearing, for the final millage and budget, discourse on September the 23rd. And we'll call this to order and we need a roll call. Ashley?
Andrew.
Member Andrew.
He's here.
My fault.
Here.
Member Chance.
Here.
Member Cornell.
Here.
Member Ferrero.
Here.
Member Hart.
Here.
Barda. Member Pinkerton.
Here.
Member Twombly.
Here.
Okay, any changes to the agenda? No changes on the agenda, okay. Do we adopt the agenda for this? Do we?
I don't think so. Public hearing. Bob, do we need a motion to adopt the agenda?
Bob, do we adopt the agenda? Do we have to adopt the agenda or we just go into it?
If there's an agenda, you adopt it, yes.
Okay, all right. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Any public discussion? There being none, all those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Okay, I'll begin by, the Children's Trust for Alachua County convenes the final public hearing on fiscal year 24-25 proposed millage rate and proposed budget as required by the Florida statutes, chapters 125 and 200, as advertised in the Truth in Millage trim notices. I urge you, if you have not already done so, to get a copy of the agenda so you can easily follow the proceedings of this evening. Citizens' comments will be taken following the overview of the budget by the Executive Director. The Trust Council will now present an overview of the Truth and Millage legislation, followed by the Executive Director's explanation of the proposed rate. Bob?
In 1980, the Florida legislature adopted what is known as the Truth and Millage legislation, or TRIM as it's called. The goal of the legislation was to ensure that taxpayers were advised of the public hearings at which the local taxing authorities' budgets and millage rates were to be considered and adopted. Each year, the property appraiser completes an assessment of the value of all property and certifies to each taxing authority the taxable value of the property within its jurisdiction. Each taxing authority then notifies the property appraiser of its proposed millage rate, its rolled back rate, and the date, time, and place of the public hearing to consider the proposed millage rate and the proposed budget. Once the property appraiser receives the information, she sends a notice by first-class mail to every taxpayer on the assessment roll. The notice contains the information from the taxing authorities as to the proposed millage rate and the time and place of the public hearing. The notice sent to taxpayers is called the trim notice. The trim notice lists what the taxes were for the prior year, what the taxes will be if the proposed budget changes are made, and what the taxes will be if no budget changes are made. The purpose of the trim notice is to provide taxpayers with sufficient basic information to enable them to participate in the public hearing process.
Marcia?
The requirements of the truth in millage legislation is to provide information about the maximum allowable millage rate of 0.500 versus the rollback rate. The rollback millage rate is defined as the millage rate which, exclusive of new construction, additions to structure, deletions, and property added due to geographic boundary changes, will provide the same ad valorem tax revenue for each taxing authority as was levied during the prior year. The proposed millage rate of 0.4500 provides for fiscal year 24-25's programming needs, adequate staffing, planning for future program needs. For the 2024 tax year, the rollback rate calculation is 0.4299 mils. The recommended proposed millage rate for fiscal year 24-25 budget is the rate of 0.4500. Mr. Chair, the Children's Trust proposed budget for fiscal year 24-25 is $17,631,434. This budget reflects the board's recommendations to increase grants and aid funding by 18.8% and to decrease operations and administration funding by 4.9%. The adjustments to the budget reflect the fiscal year 2024-25 rate of 0.4500 plus previously calculated ad valorem taxes from the property appraiser. The fiscal year 24-25 budget includes continued funding of community providers that have demonstrated the ability to provide results that align with our goals. Additionally, funds in each goal category are allocated to support the Children's Trust strategic plan. The budget has been developed to link funding with the Trust's desired goals while remaining flexible enough to respond to changing circumstances. Mr. Chair, this concludes my comments on the fiscal year 24-25 budget.
Thank y'all very much. I would like to now invite citizens to comment on the fiscal year 24-25 proposed millage rate and proposed budget. Members of the public recognized by the chair will have 3 minutes to speak on the subject of this trim hearing. The clerk of the trust will function as the official timekeeper. Members of the public may not share or transfer all or part of their allotted time to any other person. The hearing will continue until everyone who wishes to address the board has had the opportunity to do so. Does the clerk have any comments via email? Okay. Would anybody like to come and speak about this? Okay. I will now close this section of the public hearing. Madam Director.
Mr. Chair, any adjustments to the proposed budget can now be made by motion.
Any adjustments? Okay. All right. Florida statutes require the name of the taxing authority, the millage rate to be levied, to be publicly announced. Accordingly, the Children's Trust of Alachua County has determined that proposed millage rate of 0.4500 mils is necessary to fund the proposed Children's Trust of Alachua County budget. The FY 2024-25 operating millage rate is 0.4500 mils, which is greater than the rollback rate of 0.4299 mils by 10.2%. At this point, we need a motion.
We'll approve resolution 2024-12, final millage rate.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Is this one, can you vote on this one?
No.
Okay. All right. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? It was unanimous with, Judge, sitting this one out.
Move approval resolution 2024-13, final budget.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion is unanimous. This concludes the, says tentative budget hearing. This is the final one. Final budget hearing. All right. With that, we will close that meeting and we will start back with the other meeting. And I believe, I was pestering, somebody at that point.
Asking questions, not pestering. Just asking questions, not pestering.
Let's see, oh, okay. I see this as some of these things are long-term and our funding is not necessarily long-term. So I kind of have a problem funding now you said that the grant manager was going to be a one-time thing. But maybe not, depending upon what happens. And I would think that it's probably a long-term commitment.
I would defer to the county because that position would be with them because the county would be overseeing the grant funding process. Therefore, the grant manager would be in their shop. I would defer to the county if their priority.
Carl, I apologize for pestering you.
Mr. Chair, that position will only be funded 1 year at a time. Like we said before, we started with 2-year program and we'll see how the program works. As the program is working, we'll be right back in front of our board next year asking for additional funding from our Board of County Commissioners. So
well,
if the program is working, then we'll look forward to continuing that position.
Okay. I would be more comfortable with, I heard Ken saying that they were thinking about putting more money into it, that the county take care of that one, which would actually give us more money for a project. One thing to think about. The other thing is the assistant to the Santa Fe administrative assistant. I think that's probably going to be an ongoing funding as well. So I would hope that some other source could take care of that one. And obviously I'm one person up here, so we'll see how that one goes. But I would prefer to concentrate on one-time uses because I think that's our role in this. Okay. Judge, you had a question, and then Tina, you had a question. And then Ken.
I had a question about back to the computers. I hear what you're saying, and I certainly understand the value of computers and the value of resources for kids during the school day and all the day. I mean, all the after school. But that's not where we're finding the guns. We're finding the guns at night. I just don't understand what's the evidence-based connection between the use of computers to help kids during the day, which again, I would support in many different areas, to stopping guns in the community.
So, going back to cite the social determinants of health and offering other opportunities for youth to be engaged. And we know that it's not just youth that use community centers. It might also be families. So being able to provide an opportunity for parents to pay bills online and or to apply for a job online, just having the exposure and the ability to be able to do those things, to look forward to other opportunities in the future.
I get all that. That's terrific. I think that's important. I don't understand how this is going to get guns off the street because we're seeing the guns, in the cars and in the night. And I just don't see the connection. And do you have something I could look at? I could read. I'd be happy to study something. I don't understand it.
Yeah, I think Brandy did put a couple of things in here, but just to speak to some of your points, I think when we were putting this proposal together, we noticed the gap in the access to these type of technologies. And one of the things that we're hoping with this grant funded projects as well is that we can get a plethora of ideas about how to engage folks that are at highest risk of having a gun, using a gun, living in a community that is, high impact with gun violence, right? And getting those folks to these computers, these programmings. As we put them together, and I don't know that we've said this explicitly, but what we really want from this program is to target those folks, whether it's families, children, adults that are at highest risk of gun violence. They've either had a gun in their hand, they know how to get one, they have access to them, and really focusing on how to enhance, whether it's educational opportunities, whether it's internet access so that they can learn a skill. Like this is the feedback that we got from the community that was really important. And also from the youth steering committee, they wanted something that was really centered in building a skill. They wanted something that was long-term, that they could count on, that they could have access to on a regular basis. And I think access to the internet is very important. That's how a lot of people are getting information. That's how they're getting educated. And if we could do that in a very intentional way, that's guided, that's facilitated, that's funded by our projects, we get to kind of mold that and I think a really safe and intentional way. So we want to mix some of these ideas with being really intentional about who we want these programs to work with, if that answers some of the questions. But we also did get feedback from some of the assessments that were done in this community to inform that.
How many people were involved in those assessments?
I'd have to go back and get that. Yeah.
I'm just wondering what the, thank you. I still don't understand.
There's quite a number, Mary. So,
Number.
Gina,
So-
Ken, Dr. Hart,
Okay,
and then
so, I hate to like kind of beat the computer thing, but GHS, I think, has one-to-one computers in Buell's, but there's no internet. So we may look at, you may look at repurposing this stuff here with the computers and how that is done. I guess part of, the other question that I really is more for my colleague on the county commission and for Santa Fe is Brandy has mentioned several times the social determinants of health. And if you recall back the Bieber report, where employability skills, access to health care and things of that nature, educational opportunities where a lot of the folks I think that we're seeing that are involved in gun violence, I don't have those access to those things, right? So I think we have to, this is like a drop in the bucket and it's not, we're benefiting some people with the hope of reaching the children and young people who are participating in gun violence. But I think we need to be intentional about trying to reach the parents. That's outside of this board, right? And we've had that Bieber report for a number of years, and that has, I think it was 2017 that came out, published after, I was doing my little dog and pony show around the county. But I think for us I'm on the school board, so it's tasked upon our entity to do much better with our students so that we can prepare students for jobs beyond service level jobs. And then I think some kind of way we've got to get the adults engaged, Santa Fe, being able to connect with those resources, the parents that are there, to get them employability skills. I mean, people have got to make more money because some of this stuff is just crime to try to make ends meet. And we can't, as a board, we can't do all that, but where it does intersect is we've got young people who are participating in activities, criminal activities, or doing things to help their household or themselves personally. And we do want to do that. But so that was one thing I want to say. But I'm wondering if in your grants and the things, if we got people doing things outside of that normal 8 till 6 or like that, because some of this stuff, as the judge said, it's happening in the evenings. The kids need something to do in that time, 6 to 9, 6 to 10, I don't know. But I think we got to have some constructive things for older teens. The trust is funding stuff for younger children real well. I think we got them covered, right? The elementary age kids and some of the middle schools, but I think the high school age, older middle school kids and high school age kids, we've got to engage them. And I think we have to make sure that what we're doing is, how do I say this? We're not funding things where there are people that are doing very well, servicing children, families, and youth who are at the lower end of our socioeconomic status. I call it, it was told to me, I'm trying to think of the word, it's like nonprofit industrial complex where there is this entity, there are entities that are meant to operate in the social service space and to target people that are, gun violence, poor, healthcare. And they're making a really good living, but the people who really need the services are not really benefiting, or it's like one time, we're not really getting to the root of the issue. And that's what I think we gotta get to. We gotta like start really trying to attack root causes and resolving those so that we're not here and we don't have to have this one-time thing, you know. And I think until we can really do that, we're just going to continue to be coming here. We've had this Beaver study since 2017, and that was that Friendship 7, and I'm just going to keep coming back to that. We're not getting to the root of that. So thank you. I had one question.
Yeah, thank you.
Question in it?
It was.
I think it was about the after hours.
Yeah, the
and, like,
after
making
hours.
sure we address that gap. Yes, that was one of the things. This kind of been really helpful in kind of helping us shape that. So the feedback that you gave about the industrial complex, that's really helpful. One of the things that we wanted with this is to address the gap, right? Like, what are those hours when the after school program ends, but parents still aren't home from work? I know the young lady before said summer hours were a real issue, and grateful to have that funding to kind of cover those hours. So that was really key in putting this proposal together. And to speak to the root causes, again, as we look at the data that we've been collecting and the skill building piece, like, people want to be able to walk away with something that they can then use to better whatever it is that they have going for themselves. So, you know, that's where the computers come in. That's where these grant funded programs come in. And we really want, as we build this RFP process, to be thinking about those levels of prevention. How are you getting to the root causes? How are people getting, you know, the skills and the development that they need to meet their own individual goals, especially the folks that we want to target with this funding. So.
Okay, thank you. Y'all, just to let you know, we kind of have a full agenda, so whatever we can do to move this along, that would be really good. Jen?
So, thank you, Mr. Chair. So what I hear Tina saying is funding programs like Pine Ridge, which is a neighborhood and a person, and accelerating the good work that she's doing, as opposed to the historical nonprofits that know how to get the money but don't do the work.
Yeah.
That's what she's saying. And I completely agree with her and encourage, you all know who we're talking about, what we're talking about. All right, I need to put the county on the spot. So Carl, 150,000 allocated to gun violence. Have we identified what we're using that for? If we have not, I may, to try to get my chair to vote for the motion I'm about to make, I may ask that we kind of move some money around, but also still achieve our goal. Do we know what we're using that money for specifically?
Not totally. We've been trying to remain flexible and have those funds available for whatever comes up that is needed for.
Okay,
gun
so,
violence.
okay, that sounds great. So if you had $66,850 extra dollars, I'm asking everyone, how would you allocate that? Would you do more grant funded projects? Would you do more voice interrupted? How would you spend that money? Because what I'm thinking now, which I will bring back to our board tomorrow at the county commission meeting, is if we ask the county to handle, the county through its funds, to handle that grant manager and the Santa Fe administrative assistant, that's 68,000. But we use that money as either more grants, that would fund 2 more grants of 33,000 each, or it would fund 1 more grant and maybe 33,000 for more of the violence interrupter facilitator, the youth steering committee stuff that the city's doing. Is that something that you all could adjust with?
Sure, and you may or may not like the answer to this question. The way that we have made decisions is collaboratively. So if you were to if you were to ask us to go back and figure out how to program this 66,000, we would work with Ms. Kiner. We would probably bring that back to the Alliance and say, here are our options. We'd take it to our internal meetings, because we've been very cognizant that we want all of the decisions.
Obviously, the county would have to agree to handle that grant manager, because you can't have grants without a grant manager.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so, your motion?
Dr. Hart, then Dr. Hart? Yes, I do. I want one in about 30 minutes. Yeah.
Hi, thanks for recognizing me again. I'm still stuck on the computer thing, because I would assume that almost all these children have phones, and they can use their phones to do a lot of things which are not very helpful to themselves or to the other students who may be afraid of them at school. And I just have so many questions. If we have 6 youth who are telling us they need computers, what do they go to school? Because if they go to school, they might be able to use the computers at school. Perhaps they don't attend school regularly because of some reason we don't really understand. So I feel like I'm missing so much information here about the public health prevention model that you outlined in your narrative, which I thought was really lovely, but then the proposal didn't follow it. It just went to, asking kids and your advisors what they wanted without any kind of strategic plan. So I'm sort of glad I'm not there. I'm not ready for any of this. I have no problem with the amount of money. I just don't feel like you figured out how to spend it in a evidence-based way. And all I know is the Children's Trust went through a very long strategic planning process to gather a lot of information from the community and then decide what things would be evidence-based. And we're still working hard at it. So I think I don't envy you the task. I would be more excited as a physician if you came here and said, we want $50,000 to sell people locks for their guns and gun safes. That's what we want $50,000 for, to get people to safely secure the guns that are in their homes so the kids can't get their hands on them. But I didn't hear anything like that. So where's the public health approach? I'm lost.
Yeah, thank you for your question. Just to kind of answer some of the concerns. So we wanted this also to focus on things that we didn't have the resources for. Thankfully, we've been able to grow partnerships and collaboration with entities in the community. And so we have more gun locks than we know what to do with. We've been on a real hard push to get those out into the community. Giving them away for free. Starting in June, the VA gave us about 400. We've gotten all of those out into the community through our faith-based partnerships, through our community-based outreach. The community support services has some available. Our crisis center has some available. So we do have that in the works to kind of address some of these other safety issues. And we are also thinking about the community education piece. We know that that is a huge part of public health prevention, is getting information to people as they need it. And so with our contract with the Willie Mae Stokes Center and some of the other partnerships that we hope to grow with this funding, we are looking at how to get information into the community. I know Gainesville Fire Rescue is also doing a huge piece of that. So I'll let Brandy kind of talk to some of those pieces. And thinking through the grant funded proposals, just to be clear, our youth steering committee did have input into what this would look like, but they were not the only 6 people that we, looked at and asked. We also did pull it from local information. Our alliance has been a part of that. So we know we could do a better job and grow and how many people are engaged in this and looking to participate. But, I think we have made really good strides in trying to get as many voices to the table as possible. And I'll let Director Stone talk to some of the other initiatives if that's helpful.
Yes, thanks, Brittany. Just to build on what Brittany said and your statements about the public health approach, I think when you look at the different components of what we've proposed in the funding, it does hit on all of these levels, specifically in the social ecological model. So when you look at the individual level, that access to technology to build individual skills. It could be also our grant funded projects, depending on the nature of the project. That relationship level, that's a big part of violence interruption, is building rapport and credible messengers in the community. We look at the larger community efforts. As Brittany said, with these grant funded projects, we're really trying to build our community's capacity to continue to do this work. And so by funding projects back into the community, we're getting more money into into the community and building that capacity. And at that societal and policy level, I think a lot of these things, specifically like the violence interruption, these are new things. And and the strategic plan and doing things like this, I truly believe start to shift our culture and the way that we look at gun violence, and really focusing on looking at these levels of prevention, looking at that public health approach. So I think we're doing our best to hit all of those levels, but also hit that level of prevention, working with youth who might be at risk, all the way to youth that have intersected with the criminal justice system in some way, to be able to provide them the support to move forward with their lives. So I just wanted to kind of reiterate and build on that.
Mary?
My question is more about the strategic planning consultant, and the first sentence talks about alliance stakeholders indicated an interest in a strategic plan for gun violence in the next 6 months. And then, excuse me, to Dr. Hart's point, it's starting in Q3, I think, in your plan. So starting it then, but what is the time, like, you're hoping to have a plan for what time period? Because what I heard Member Cornell describing is at the end of this influx of funding, there will be some recommendations for sustainability or what you carry forward with this this alliance of city, county, Santa Fe, other partners. Is that what this consultant will be working towards, a plan that is for a longer time period?
Yes, ideally. And that process has started, and I know Dr. Brunnings might have a little bit more to share than I do, but we have already started to get proposals from folks about a strategic plan. I know you're already working on a request for proposals for folks to also engage in that process. So the hope is that if this is moving forward, that we could contract with that person in this first quarter and then move from there to implement the different steps. But
I think the idea of the strategic plan is the timeline is based for our memorandum of understanding, which is for up to 3 years. And the goal is for us to, have an idea of, with the strategic plan, where are we going to be in 3 years? And then the time, we'll have to reevaluate, obviously, what have we accomplished and what would we want to do now? Because it's a little naive to think that in 3 years we've solved all Alachua County's gun violence problems. But our goal right now is for the life of our MOU. Okay. And Dr. Hart, I wanted to comment briefly on the computers. I think our focus is not so much on the computers themselves, but on the programming around it. And this is where it's going to be really important for us, where we're going to put those computers. It's not the computers themselves, it's what are we doing with them? And the one criticism that feedback that we did get for our proposal is that somebody said, like, we need evening programming, right? So we're really looking at evening programming, and we're going to be looking at what are we going to do with those computers and how will that help, keep our youth off the street. So I think the focus is should not be so much on the actual physical computers, but what are we doing with them? And that's where our selection process comes in, and where we're going to look at the programming that's built around those computers. I hope that makes sense. You still look flummoxed.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate the explanation. Yes.
Wait for everybody to.
Well, and that was one thing. One of you used the terminology guided usage, and I think that was key because I heard that.
Right.
And so that could be guiding through families or children using telehealth for mental health services. It could be educational tutoring. It could be mentoring. It could be a lot of things. So I think figuring that piece out is going to be key. The other thing is the maintenance of the computers, because in a former job I had, I put a lot of computers out at community centers and would get the calls afterwards. Would be like, well, it broke or somebody spilled, something on it. What do we do now? I didn't do maintenance dollars into that. And so you have to think in terms of that longevity of those computers and the turnover of the software. They become outdated. So just a couple of points around. I hate to even talk about computers again, but I did hear you say guided usage. And I think that was the piece we didn't talk about enough.
Marcia.
Yes, sir. And I will be brief because you're correct. We have quite a bit left in our agenda. First of all, I want to say thank you to Brandy, Brittany, Dr. Brunings and Mr. Smart, all of you for your efforts, for your thoughtful leadership in this area. It is not easy to convene a lot of different people with different opinions and put together a proposal. I want to share with the board that they did bring a couple of drafts of the proposal to me. I am the culprit of the hub, of the computer hub, because I did not really care for one iteration of the proposal, which was going to put computers in the hands of individual people. I felt the community would be better served if we put computers at community centers where families and the young people would be able to come in and they could do exactly what is being proposed. There could be programming designed around them. So I appreciate that you all did do that. Member Cornell, I love your suggestion of going back to the county and freeing up some additional funding so that the Alliance could discuss perhaps broadening the youth voice on the committee. That to me has really been the missing piece. And I say missing, not really missing, but I'd love to see it grow and be incorporated more fully if that is a possibility. But just so you all know, I fully support the recommendations of this team of folks. So I wanted to say that before you all took a vote. Thank you.
Ken, I have a couple comments for the motion. The strategic plan, I would hope that y'all talk with Marcia, because our strategic plan, the way we did it, and I'm not one for strategic plans. I thought we ended up with an impressive product, and we got lots of input, and it allowed us to recognize that there were certain areas that we need to concentrate our efforts. And then we had the wherewithal to say, okay, that's where we're going to spend our money. And hopefully that's what we do. Secondly, y'all kind of mentioned family, getting with the families. I would hope that y'all would do as much as you could to, get family involvement, because, I thank Tina for bringing it up. When you're worried about working 2 and 3 jobs, it's hard to be a good parent, a good role model. So you have to be a special human being. So hopefully y'all will do, some of this money will go towards things that may include doing things the family unit. Okay.
Okay, so I have to make a comment about the strategic plan. What I hear them doing is every month engaging the community and as part of the strategic planning outreach. I will also say that this trust spent many years funding programming without a strategic plan. And while I couldn't agree more with your comments about how well we did our strategic plan, you got to give the Alliance time, space to actually get to a point where they can then come back to the county, the city, and the community and say, here's the things we've been doing for the last 2.5 years, and these are the things that are really working. Here's our recommendation. So I am fine with funding stuff prior to the strategic plan. And I know y'all have been convening monthly, getting community input. So what I heard my chair say, and I couldn't agree more, is that the grant manager position and the Santa Fe assistant administrative position are going to be ongoing things. These are things that somebody's going to have to figure out how to fund, and the best that we just move into this eyes wide open. So page 40, members, if you're following along, is that budget. If you take that 45,350 and that 21,500, that's a total of $66,850. I think between the county, Santa Fe, and the city, the county's got 150, the city's got 173. I'll let you all decide how we fund those because they're necessary. But I think what you're hearing from this board is take that 66,850 and use it in a different way. Maybe you have to fund your strategic planning person to come to every one of your evening meetings. Maybe you have to do 2 more grant funds. Maybe you have to do 1 more grant fund for 33,000 and more interrupter. I don't know, don't want to know, want y'all to do it. And so I would move that CTAC approve the gun violence prevention funding proposal, ask that the Alliance reallocate the grant manager and the Santa Fe assistant funds and work with the county, Santa Fe, and the city to fund these positions.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? We have a motion and a second. Was not super enthusiastic. Okay, at this point, what we'll do is we'll open it up to the public. You've heard the motion. It's to approve the budget, reallocating, a couple things for $67,000 and putting it into other categories. So would anybody like to address the board about the motion?
I would like to hear Carl and the city say they can work with that. Can y'all work with those two things? Can y'all work with that motion?
Come on up
Yeah.
to the mic.
Okay,
Please.
that's Elio.
Well, again, Elio Piedra from Tu Fiesta Radio. Good afternoon again. Really quick. First of all, this is beautiful, wonderful. I love it. This is a wonderful program. We talk about students, families. We talk about community. Let's bring up really quick that Santa Fe College, 25% of the international students, they're Latinos, Santa Fe College. We have 14% of the entire population in Alachua County, we're Latinos. And let's bring up as well that we just hired 13 officers last Friday at GPD, and 4 of them are Latinos. So my question, it might be a suggestion to you, any of these resources has been translated or used towards our Latino population? If not, I would love to support you guys any way I can. And I'm just talking about serving the community. So think about it, 25% within the minorities, the Latino population is the highest number in Santa Fe College. And I just, you know, as much as I love, I just wanted to share that with you guys. It would be awesome if we could have those resources to engage also with the Latino community, because having these bilingual officer, it is, you know, a tremendous asset. So I wanted to share that with you guys.
And there are the 4 people that you want to go talk to. You saw them, so, right over there.
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Thanks, Elio.
Anyone else? Christy?
Yes, so we just wanted to mention that on behalf of the trust and the providers that we are funding, to your very good point, the gentleman from Tu Fiesta, we do make sure our providers have access to the language line. And so any families that need support with applications or signing up for any information, we've allocated within our budget to ensure that though not only our material, but some material that they create, as well as face-to-face contact and communication is through translation through language line.
Thank
So
you.
it's a very good point to what you're saying.
Any further input? Going once, going twice, back to the board. Yeah, yeah.
So there is a really successful model that is happening in our school districts. It's robotics, and there's a demographic that doesn't get to participate in that. Y'all, try to seek out somebody who can, and I was reminded of it. I see some folks in the back there, but maybe that they could target that, you know, things that app development and using computers and that nature, but also just building and mechanical type. Thank you.
Before we vote, thank y'all very much for coming and spending good deal of time with us, and for the public as well. We do appreciate it. And after saying that, all those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion is unanimous. Great job. Thank you very much. Okay, next item. The interlocal agreement. Motion be good.
I move approval.
Second.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I said second.
Okay, have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Any discussion from the public? This is just our agreement with the Alachua County to do various items. They help us legal and HR and some other things. So this is just our interlocal agreement with them. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion is unanimous. Next item would be the summer camp. Honey, I believe that's you. Bonnie, I really want to start out by saying I sure do appreciate the homework assignment you gave us. And I I had to talk to, get tutoring from Marcia earlier, because I was not gonna do my homework assignment.
Is my mic on? Yes, I hear it. Okay. So we're in the year 4 of funding summer camp experiences for Alachua County youth who demonstrate need. The fiscal year 2024 that just passed was our final renewal for summer camp, our current summer camp providers. So we are looking to fund or release an RFP to get new providers to provide summer camp experiences for youth in the 2025 year. So this is intended as a twofer to both share the results and what we've learned thus far, but also move us into 2025 and get some feedback on and direction on how to improve upon what we're offering for summer camp experiences for youth. So the children served with the Alachua County funding, I know you've seen this slide. This past year, we served less youth than in previous years. We had 3 less funded providers as compared to summer 2023. And then also some providers didn't serve their total goal set for the number of youth served. So I wanted this to be something that you guys knew about and when we think about funding programs, if providers aren't able to meet the requirements or might not, might receive funding from other sources, that could be a reason why we serve less youth.
What are the 3 organizations?
The 3 organizations is CADE, didn't, and they had the previous year, Greater Bethel, and the third one was the YMCA in Waldo. 2 of the 3 did operate, and then Greater Bethel didn't operate. So the good thing is that that youth were still served in the.
Let me just clarify real quick. Greater Bethel was awarded funds because we had additional dollars. That 1 year, it was a one-time thing. So it's not that they didn't operate because he would have. But that is why that Greater Bethel did not have a summer camp for this year. Yes.
So, but even with those 3 operating, if we added the numbers they had in 23, it wouldn't have been higher than we had in the previous year. So there was a little bit less youth served in that year. In this current year, the average, so this is who we've served, the average age being 9.1, ranging from 4 years old. Everybody's 5 on September 1st in order to enter kindergarten, but there were some 4-year-olds at the beginning of the summer. And the oldest, the max age was 17 years old. So the percentage elementary, middle, and high is remarkably similar to last year. And then the rest of the demographics, the largest prevalence of race is Black or African American, followed by white, multiracial, other races. We did serve 11% Hispanic, which is actually up from 7% last year, and we serve more females than males. This shows our distribution of program locations in the 24 year. So we had 24 program locations, so site locations. We had 20 organizations, and this shows where they fell on the map. And it shows also to the right, the children served by the city of residents. So our largest group of children are in Gainesville, which makes sense because that's where most of our program locations are as well. But also serving about 26% in the outlying Gainesville areas. Scholarship eligibility. So this is something to keep in your mind as you're filling out your survey that we have for later in the presentation. Scholarship eligibility, these are the criteria that we've had for scholarship eligibility, and some more of the details are in the survey part. Only 9% of the youth got a partial scholarships. Not all of the providers offered partial scholarships. So the majority fall in the full scholarship range. Full scholarship means that they are, their income is below 200% of the federal poverty level, that the family receives SNAP, that they have an IEP or 504 plan, and also are below 400%, that they're in foster care, formal kinship care under case management supervision. The partial scholarships are those that are below 400, but above 200. And of course, this more than one criteria could apply. We have on the form check all that apply for demographic purposes, so we know the different needs that families are experiencing, so we can know about what program offerings would be more appropriate. This chart shows all our 25 site that we funded, and along with the program days offered by each site. Again, this is something that we ask about in the input to get your input on. Our summer camps offered an average of 30 program days. This is different than what is in your packet. We had one provider submit their final program attendance one day after the public packet was published, so you'll see that there's some additional days for the YMCA sites on the bottom, and that bumped our average up to 30 days. So that shows the range and who offered how many days. The number of weeks, so all summer long is 10 weeks. There was a provider that offered just 1 week of camp. There's some providers that offered 3 weeks of camp. So this shows the range of where the number of weeks offered, and to decide and for discussion on should there be a minimum number of weeks, should there be, camp offered the whole summer for kids. So 10 was the greatest frequency, and then 10 weeks represents the whole summer. This, the green overlays on the blue. So the blue is the program days from the previous slide. The green shows the average days attendance. And what I'd like to point out on this slide as well, the average is about 24 days of camp. Again, the YMCA with their average went a bit up with the additional data entered. But you can see the gap between the green and the blue shows that some camps offered summer, all summer long, but not always families will sign up for every single week. Sometimes they'll have different weeks where they might do different things with their kids, or they might have them in more than one camp. So some camps operate where they have families sign up for the number of weeks that they need for their children, which may be the full duration of the camp. One thing that we started to ask on the enrollment form is ask parents to commit for their planned attendance, and that's actually one of the performance measures, is measuring their planned committed attendance to the number of days that they actually attend, which providers and overall we did quite well on. So if they sign up for 10 days, even if the camp was open for 30 days, did they attend those 10 days that they signed up for? So there could be more than that's how we've operated thus far. I wanted to show this to, yeah. Go ahead. Freedom School operates under a different RFP and contract, so they're not on this list. They offered 6 weeks.
That's why I asked. I didn't see it. I was like,
Bonnie, when you do this next year, if you put the total number on there as well, so, the end, so we can see, compare. You've got the total number a couple pages back.
Yeah,
But
yeah, that would be the
But
total,
if you, just so we can.
and that would be
compare.
the number of days attended. So the youth duration programming, so this is like the weeks, but again, looking at what youth actually participated in. And so 65% of youth attended camps between 7 to 10 weeks of camp. So more of the skew is to the higher number of weeks attended, where the most is in the 7 weeks, because that's what the most camps offered. But they're and then a lower frequency of youth was served within the camps at 6 weeks and under. So this shows our satisfaction survey results that we do with parents. We have received 419 responses from parents, and this shows the percentage of parents that said good or great about these items on the survey. So everything higher than 90% across items. And then this shows also, when you look at the size of the orange and the gray bars, it shows parents that also said things that, items that they thought were bad or just okay. So communication has a little bit more orange, safety, staff to youth ratio, small slivers of orange and youth enjoyment and youth learning. And then you can see that the okay was the okay, the spatial area for okay as well. So just to show you all the data, not to just show good and great, but to show the whole spectrum. And of course, we asked families, what did they like best? What did they like least? Why they chose the camp? What impact did the camp have on their family? So I summarized some of what families liked best. They liked the activities that the camp offered. That's also what drove them to choose the camp. The kids as well loved the field trips, loved the activities, the staff and the friendships. And this was similar from what we've seen in previous years. And I added a few quotes from families about what they liked about the fun and educational and learning. And those were some highlights of what families liked best. What families liked least, the most common comment was the program length, that they felt it was too short. They wanted more weeks, it didn't last longer, short hours. So short had to do with both duration and then also the hours per day. And then there's the typical comments about waking up early, not liking that during the summer, the Florida heat, food, activities. Sometimes they said activities were boring, sometimes staff were too strict, sometimes they didn't, so those were some of the comments about what families liked least about their camping, or both parents and children. We asked them to ask their kids for their opinions as well as they complete the surveys. So these were the performance measures for our summer camp. And again, wanting to show these again so we can reflect on what we have now and where we'd like to go moving forward. Our children enrolled, we served less than last year, but given the programs that we had and wanting to see them serve at least 90% of their site targets, they actually did exceed that slightly. And then for the program days, that did end up, even with adding the additional days that I received late, we didn't quite meet the program days target because some programs didn't end up operating their full anticipated number of days. Everything else is in the green and exceeding the target. The children's planned days of attendance, that's even higher than last year, where it was at 77%. And then all the satisfaction targets were above the 90 or 85% for communication. This last slide I really put as informational because I knew we might get into it as we talk about the input questions that we have. And so the average scholarship rate was 282 and the median 197, but there's quite a big difference between them. And the full amount that programs can receive is kind of spread across 5 different line items, so enrollment fee, full scholarship, and partial scholarship, but they also could ask for activity, program materials, background checks, transportation. So a program that has a high full scholarship, they might have not requested items in other line items that some other programs may, but I just wanted to share this information because I know having a max cost or a set cost or something like that might have been something that came up as input from the board. Again, not all programs ask for all costs. Everybody did have a full scholarship rate though, so that was the easiest one to draw from. Until we close our books on summer 2024, we won't really know the average total cost per child. But that kind of brings us to the survey, which I would really like to hear back from you as you leave. If you've hopefully started a little bit and then
I didn't fill out my survey, like, I saw it here and I was wanting to talk with y'all about it.
Yeah,
And that's what I
what
figured.
I was,
Yeah, I didn't know we were supposed to do it before, and then when I realized we were supposed to do it,
Well-
saw the note, I asked if they would email it to us because I can't write a lot because of my sore throat.
how soon do you need this as far as input for the RFP? Like yesterday?
A week from now.
So I believe you wanted to discuss a little bit. There are some areas,
And that's what I'm trying to, because, we've still got something else to do.
No.
And, so we can do it now if you want, or we can.
Make it- can I pro-
Huh?
Well, so the board action is to receive the presentation.
Right.
And then give any feedback and provide direction for the upcoming RFP. If we let our board members fill out our surveys and then get that back, I mean, I'm happy to receive it. I filled out my survey, but I'd love to see my colleagues' responses and then have that discussion as opposed to just having it. So could we put off that second piece? When's the RFP have to go out?
so we're looking at, January, February, so after the new year.
Oh, okay.
Please.
But the question was when the RFP comes out, there are quite a few steps that need to take place prior to that. We need to hear you all's opinions about many of the things that were discussed in the review, duration, the impact that we're trying to make for summer camps. It is beneficial for us to hear the discussion. We can share with you all what you guys provide to us via writing, but we need to start putting something together. We then have to bring it back for a workshop, then for that to, but if it would be helpful, maybe are there one or two of the most important questions that we can ask?
The biggies are the academic enrichment, and summer learning loss. So is this something we want to have all providers that we fund do? Is it something that we want to have some providers, do and some providers not do, opt in, opt out? I think that's kind of the big ticket item that I think everybody's,
I think that needs to be a discussion.
and then how we do it. Is it, do
We
we?
talked about this for 15 minutes.
Yeah, yes, and then, so, well, I'll plant the, plant the seed.
Right, and, we can do like Ken suggested, but there are some things in here that I was literally putting it down because I wanted to hear, because
Yes.
what I feel like, but I could very easily be talked out of it. And I, which brings me to the question, did we fund any totally academic summer programs?
Some of our-
School
some-
was.
Yeah, and some of the programs that outside of Freedom School, they do have a very academic component to their design. So there are some programs that fit very well to, and then there's some programs where, again, one of the suggestions or inputs was, is there staffing that, is expert in this that goes into the site to deliver the academic?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
so what I hear is that we need to just plan to provide a workshop
Yes.
on summer. And we may wind up having two, but that's okay. Why don't we'll find a date. I'll have Ashley, I see Dr. Hart's hand up. I'll have Ashley see if we can get a date that will work. And it might be our October 14th because we moved maternal child health to November. So would you all be able to make it prior to the beginning of the October 14th meeting? We have a summer
Yeah.
planning workshop.
School board has a workshop that day. I don't know the time. Ms. Andrew, do you have a time for that workshop yet, that they're
On which date?
October 14th?
That should be in the morning, 9 to 12.
So we would be 1:30.
Driving, that was the day I'm going to the Restoring Hope Conference for DJJ. But if I can attend virtually, I'll still attend.
Yeah.
and participate.
Where would we be meeting?
That's a good question. Well, we're here, so here.
Is it possible we could do 2 o'clock? Because there's a lunch, the PACE luncheons that day, which sometimes it's all the way across town.
2 o'clock?
Would that be okay?
Yeah.
Yes,
Enough time?
2 o'clock.
2 o'clock.
I could do that.
Okay, so
All right, so I would move that we receive the information. We ask the board members to fill out the survey in the next 2 weeks and that we schedule a future workshop with the data provided from the board members on the survey.
Second, did you have a question? And then Dr.
That
Hart.
works for me.
Dr. Hart? No. You had your hand
I'll
raised.
just hold my questions for the workshop.
Okay. Will you be here for that one? Will you
Yes, I'll
back
be
in?
here.
Okay.
I'll be there.
I have a question.
I won't be here. I'll be there.
I have a question.
Okay.
What date do you need our input so that we can effectively use it on October 14th?
Can we have it by Friday?
I said by the end of the week.
Oh, I didn't hear that. I'm sorry, I
Okay.
missed it. This Friday?
Oh, just in 2 weeks.
You can't write.
Okay.
I can't write.
I just have one comment. On page 64, the performance measures, outstanding. I mean, I think we exceeded them all, just not barely on program days, but everything else was really, really outstanding. I will tell my colleagues that I am less inclined to require performance measures for summer school as I am for after school. I think summer school is really a real opportunity for us to get kids that have that have never experienced new experiences to experience experiences. So
Unless
preview
it's
to
an
the workshop.
educational summer program.
Preview to the workshop, but yeah, I mean, I could be convinced, but we're talking about requirement and RFP and grading and all that, and I am campus, for me at least. I, as a board member,
Exposure to things you wouldn't normally.
I want us to scholarship as many kids as possible, especially those that are under the 200. And I want us to give them new experiences because I know that a single summer camp can change the direction of a kid. I firmly believe that, and I don't want to start putting me personally, want to start putting requirements like we do on after school or like we're moving towards on after school. I think Tina said it past couple of years ago, the school board's job is to get them certain, and our job is to help with that, but really to help provide opportunities for every kid to be whatever they decide to be.
And y'all, I apologize. I didn't realize how involved the first discussion was going to be.
This is a really involved one.
This one will be
Yeah.
more involved, and I apologize to y'all for putting it on today. So it should have been its own thing. So, I just didn't realize the first one would take as long. So, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Any public discussion? There being none, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Wait, Chrissy stood up. Arrington,
You gotta,
better hurry up, cause
Yeah.
it's quick, man.
Christy Arrington, Executive Director of Girls Place. I'm really grateful for the funding, first and foremost. We've told you before how great it feels to be able to tell a family that they get to come for 10 weeks of summer for free. It also feels really great to tell a family they can come for $19 a week. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Grateful for the workshop because yes, you are funders, we are professionals in our field. And so ideally you're able to listen to us and hear from us and our feedback and what works best. Real life, burnout is a thing. And so part of what we're trying to evaluate in 10 weeks of programming and 42 weeks of after school is how can we look out for our team too, in addition to looking out for kids. And so we don't have an answer for that necessarily, but 12-hour days, 10 weeks, and then rolling right into after school, it's a lot, especially for those team members that are there, day in and day out. So looking forward to the workshop, and I appreciate y'all, and come visit Girls Place if you want to see what running summer camp with 8 groups, 12 hours a day looks like.
Organized chaos.
yes, ma'am.
Good evening, everyone. Allison Marks with Kids Count. Just want to echo what Christy just shared. Very grateful for the experiences we're able to provide for our students. I was a volunteer with Kids Count in 2014 when I was at the University of Florida. And one of the things that stuck out to me was that the students that attend Kids Count rarely go beyond a 2-mile radius of their zip code. So the opportunity to provide these fun experiences for our kids and for their families as well is huge, because I look at it from that prevention family development aspect as well. So really and truly so incredibly grateful.
And again, to echo what Christy said, thinking about us providers that also facilitate after school. Kids Count works with Rawlings Elementary School, which as a year-round pilot school begins mid-July. So we are somewhat limited in the number of weeks we're able to provide. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Okay, all those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion is unanimous. And last item, well, last presentation.
Afternoon. Made it to the very end.
Not quite, but.
Almost there. As we are wrapping up the budget for this fiscal year, we wanted to provide an overview on sponsorships. And we were so excited to have two of our sponsorship recipients come join us this evening. We've already lost our commissioner, Andrew Miller, and Mayor Whites. They had a meeting in High Springs, so they waited as long as they could. So they were here. They wanted to just say thank you, thank you, thank you, because they did receive a sponsorship through the chamber. And we do have Sharon Decker here with the High Springs Chamber. Would you like to come up and say a few words? Okay,
Please, you sat there for 2 hours and 10 minutes. You deserve to be able to say something.
Appreciate. We really appreciate it so much. And just to see the families, and especially the kids just starting their first year in school, it was unbelievable to have their book bags and all the supplies were in it. And then we also were able, Andrew has a barbershop, so he was cutting hair, and it was unbelievable. And we did almost right at 400 book bags that we gave away. And this is what our third year. And so it grew, each year it's been unbelievable. But this year, there's more kids in High Springs. There's nothing else to rent or buy in there right now. We're just overloaded. But it was just a blessing, and we really appreciate it. And thank you so much for all that you do for the children in our county, because it's unbelievable. I mean, you would almost come out, well, you will come out of there in tears with some of the kids that came in there. We found out last year that they didn't have shoes, and that was the saddest thing. So now we were able to get shoes for them too, for school. So thank you so much.
Thank you very, very much for coming in and sharing the story. It means a lot that you take the time. I mean, it took an hour to get from High Springs to here and an hour back, and well, we do very much appreciate you coming. All right.
Yeah, and Commissioner Miller, he was wearing the CTAC t-shirt.
Yeah,
today.
I saw.
He was not a commissioner at the time, 3 years ago when we were involved with helping with the sponsorship, and he has really grown that program with the High Springs Chamber, and it really is amazing to see all the kids that are being helped with that back to school event. And we also have our second, yes.
Ken wants, before you get going, Ken wants to.
I was just gonna say, Liz, Marcia, staff, what an incredible job, y'all. 42 sponsorships, I added them up, $54,000, really putting the trust all around the county, every nook and cranny, and it's an amazing use of funds. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Do you need a motion?
No. Let us hear from Swampbach, who is here, and then we can wrap it up if that's okay.
Okay.
Because the children have been waiting here since 4 o'clock. So
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. I want to see the swamp.
Jason Sweet, Swampbach.
Oh, yeah. There they are.
Welcome. Thank you all very much for coming.
Thank you guys for having us, and I guess I owe these guys McDonald's or something when we leave here, but we just want to come in and say thank you. My name is Jason Sweat. I am the president and founder of SwampBots Robotics in High Springs, and we were formed to serve the rural and underserved communities with STEM education throughout the county. And we started with the help of Children's Trust 5 years ago, I believe it was, through a grant program. And from there, when we officially formed our organization as it is today, we have grown from 26 kids now to 117 this year that are being served all throughout, from Micanopy all the way to High Springs and in between. these are a couple of our kids who were on the Frogmen team last year. And there's some slides behind you. So last year was the second year in a row that this amazing group of kids were invited, not just invited, but earned an invite to an international competition. So Mr. Cornell, you talked about 42 sponsorships putting Children's Trust all over the map in Alachua County. It's really put Children's Trust all over the map, all over the world. They competed against 80 teams from around the world for the last 2 years, coming in the top 30, 35 out of those teams, which is incredible. We met teams from Japan and Australia, who we were paired with for Alliance Games, Philippines, South Korea, Saudi Arabia, Maldives. I mean, you name it, they were there. And it was just an amazing time. And to be honest, we couldn't be where we are today without the support of the trust, and we couldn't have made it to Daytona Beach to this competition without the support. And I just wanted them to have a second to say thank you to you guys as well.
We don't bite, I promise.
Maybe.
And you can pull that microphone down if you need to.
You are.
So my name is Grayson, and
You're doing great.
You're doing great.
Yeah.
What was the most fun about FSI?
Probably meeting all these teams from like all around the world.
That'd be pretty neat.
Awesome, Grayson. Thank you.
Thank you, Grayson.
My name is Tana, and my favorite thing from FSI was probably also meeting all the teams. It was pretty cool. That was pretty cool.
Thanks, Taylor.
My name's Emily, and my favorite was just being able to compete.
So real quick, one thing I want to say about this program is we participate in a worldwide competitive organization called FIRST. And one thing about the program and the slogan that we use is it's not kids building robots, it's robots building kids. And one of the big things, and if you knew these three individuals 3 or 4 years ago when they first joined the program, standing here and speaking to you guys would have never happened. But one of the things that we use robotics for, and we use a program for, is we use it to build up the kids. It's not just about the robot and the games. I mean, they're having to compete with presentations. They have to give 2 5-minute presentations to a panel of judges who they've never seen before. They have to come in and talk. They have to answer questions. They have to go before total strangers and present their robot and compete. And it really builds tomorrow's leaders, and it builds the minds that are behind the successful companies. It helps them be able to learn to get their ideas out and to be able to work with other members of their team. And so it's a program that I jokingly say, really, we're just building good humans. We just use Legos and robots to mask what we're really trying to accomplish, right? And it's been super successful. Again, we went from 26 kids to 117 from last year just to this year. And, we're still going. Unfortunately, we had to start a wait list this year, right? But we're still growing. There's still more and more kids who want to join and want to be a part of this. We have other teams who are forming outside because we just didn't have the space and the funding to do it. So they formed their own teams. And so we're growing, and we hope that we'll continue to grow at this rate. But thank you guys so much for everything that you've done for not only Alachua County and the community, but for kids like these in our program. So thank you so much.
Thank you all very much.
I'm going to leave it at that because we had some really great speakers. And really what I wanted to let you all know is that we're funding sponsorships in the communities across Alachua County. We're seeing so many families. We're getting to know people. We're building trust. And I think it's been really great to be able to go to all these different parts of the county and do great things. And I have been really committed to attending a lot of these events as well. And so when people say, Liz is everywhere, yes, Liz is everywhere. But thank you so much for your trust in us to give these funds out. And if you have any questions, you all have the PowerPoint. You can reach out to us. Thank you.
I'll call you, Liz, but I do have a question about, I will call you about, they asked for 4,500 and they get 900. And so I'm just curious how you.
Real quickly, we don't fund any more than up to $2,500. And we look at the application, the number of people that they anticipate, the zip code, what is it that they're going to be providing. So we kind of look at that. I meet with Edie Kiner. She makes the final decision. If she says yes, then we give the information over to finance. And I have to give a shout out to finance because they're doing an amazing job, because they're doing efficiency work on those, putting out those checks that, our folks are able to get the checks before even the events, because before it used to be, but yeah, so it's amazing that we're just really
You gotta be
rocking it.
careful about that because you don't want to give the money and then the event not take place.
Oh, no, that's why we do a really good job. We do collect data. They have to provide information. It's all in the PowerPoint, but if you
Right.
need questions, trust me, we're making sure that there's accountability.
Well, you include it every month, so.
And if they do not hold the event, then they have to give the money back.
Yes, and they don't do that. They reschedule. Trust me, they
Exactly.
have
They
told
reschedule.
me,
They don't want to
we
give them.
can't do it because it was
Yeah.
raining, but we're gonna do it next week. So, yes. All right, well, thank you.
Any questions? All right, thank you very much. Very much, Liz. Okay, back to general public comments. Anybody who would like to comment on what they've seen today or any comments whatsoever, this would be the time to do it.
Christy Arrington, Executive Director, Girls Place. Thank you so much for the opportunity to attend the conference with After School. It's going to be really hard on our team, and we have 2 fundraisers and a CEO Institute, but we're sending Nevada, and we're looking forward to her growth through that experience. So thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Anyone else? Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I just wanted to let you all know, my name's Isabel Brazell. I'm the youth program coordinator. I was nominated as a finalist for After School Program Employee of the Year in the state of Florida, so I'll be attending the conference. So I just wanted to share that.
Okay.
Share our wins.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And where do you work?
Work at the Gainesville Circus Center.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Did you want to say something? Oh, we're excited that people are here.
By the way, you guys are awesome. We have worked together. That's awesome. One more thing I want to clarify, when we talk about, using the resources to translate and all of that, it wasn't only for the program of the gun violence, but actually for every single program within the Alachua County. I think we should start or keep improving that. And I appreciate the fact that last storm, the Alachua County did that, and that was awesome because we have 1,575 families that they reach out to Fiesta Radio through our resources to say thank you. We knew where everything was happening, the electrical cables, all the little details, because also the Alachua County translate all that information. So I just think that that's wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We appreciate it. Okay, anyone else? Okay. Yes, ma'am.
So just personal experience, being an alumni of the Take Stock in Children program, just listening today, this is my first time attending a meeting.
And it'll be your last?
No, it will not. No, it will not. Actually, I want to have my team coming and listening to these. This is a great opportunity. You guys are running a great operation here. But as somebody who serves on the Dream on Purpose board, the One Nation, One Project with the city, and them doing the gun violence, we've seen girls come in and participate in that program. We've seen community involvement with that program. And having those girls involved in after school on Saturdays, coming to those events, and girls being involved in school and children through Take Stock in Children being involved in summer programming, you're keeping students, you're keeping them doing activities that they should be doing versus being on the streets. And I can speak, my father's a convicted felon, and I went through the Take Stock in Children program. He was incarcerated. My mother had me at 14. But having opportunities like Take Stock in Children, having opportunities like Dream on Purpose, having people in this community invested in our children and those activities really does make a difference. standing up here as the executive director from a program I benefited from, the reason why I can stand here is because of the programs that you're funding. And I just felt like I wanted to share that. You are truly making a difference in kids' life. And it does take time. Take Stock started by Don Pemberton in 1995. And that program, you know, it took time to build up to where it is now. 30 years later, 40,000 students impacted. Our high school graduation rate, we're at 98% with Take Stock in Children, and it makes a difference. But it does take time to develop. And I just wanted to say that from a personal experience. My father had a gun and had experience with that, and he became a convicted felon. You see the change in a generation
Yeah.
right here. So thank you.
Thank you very much. And if memory serves correctly, it's a contract, isn't it, in seventh or eighth grade, that you kind of have a contract that you'll do certain things and then you get awarded the scholarship in that?
Oh, you
that-
know,
yeah,
from back
yeah.
in the day when you drilled me on that.
I know.
Thank you, Tia.
No,
That was a
thank-
lovely way to end the meeting. Thank you.
Yeah, thank y'all very much. Y'all really make the meeting for us. We appreciate it. Okay, board members? Anybody have anything for the good of the order? No. Have a little bit more. patience. Okay, our next meeting will be, let's see, October, well, it says next meeting date, that's today, so I can't help any, October the 14th. Okay, October the 14th, and we look forward to seeing y'all next time. If y'all like, ain't got anything else to do, we'll be here at 2:00.
2:00.
Okay, all right. Thank y'all very much. Have a great evening. Meeting is adjourned.